Hey everyone, Dragi here with Ukraine Matters. The elections in the United States have concluded, and while there's right now a lot of people all across the world doing some soul searching, we are here moving forward with supporting Ukraine. While we are talking about the potential negatives that could come with Trump being inaugurated, while we can discuss about whether or not he's going to get in bed with Putin, we must admit that besides the negatives, there is also going to be certain positives that are coming up with Trump's presidency. And I feel extremely vindicated because a lot of these things that I'm going to be talking about today is something I've been telling you for years now. Now, I know I'm going to be preaching to a choir a little bit, but just to kind of get your head going into the right direction, we're going to talk about these positive things that are coming with the change of administration in the United States. The first and absolutely crucial, something I've been pointing out day and night to the European politicians and the European citizens, is stating that our European politics are weak. Now, I know a lot of the common people feel very weirded out about the Trump administration, but it has nothing on the amount of bricks that was shot by the European politicians. And I despise them because they're weak, because they're inefficient, and they don't take the action necessary to the challenges that is presented by the world. Well, now Trump coming to power is a huge reality check for them as well. These politicians are now suddenly realizing they're looking down the barrel another Trump presidency, and they are caught pants down again. My whole point of this channel and why Ukraine matters specifically is so the article that's talking about, EU is looking how to ramp up production now that US is not going to be supporting Ukraine. This should never have been the case. This should not have been the surprise. US should not have been there supplying the majority of this. Us as Europeans needed to be strong and need to be strong to support ourselves. US should be a great ally. Well, now with Trump, I think we're going to have a lot more talks about it, and it's already happening. Just now, we had a big discussion, and then this year, France President Emmanuel Macron really tried to push for more autonomy, more European Union military, more discussion about how we can be independent in our security apparatus. Now, is it probably problematic for the alliance? Yes, because it's really good for US that there are other countries that are dependent on its military, because then basically we're going to buy, for example, military produce from United States rather than making it in Europe. But it is bad for Europe because we're not able to deal with a lot of our own issues, and it puts us in a bad light. So while these initiatives got some traction, it feels that a lot of them were squished down prior because specifically of the Biden administration. Biden administration, together with this absolutely spineless Schultz administration, we found out very, very clearly what was happening during all of these years is that these two axes, one in Europe, one in US, have been squishing down not only the France's initiatives, not only the Polish initiatives, but also not allowing, for example, for Sweden to deliver the AWACS planes that are long-range radar. It was also preventing some other things that is now lifting the bans on. Why it needed to get to this point to finally do something is beyond me, and this is why I explain to you all the time that we need to push our politicians, that our political class is insufficient to the challenges that are presented. And I'm very happy that this meeting took place because President Macron actually talks very extensively about what we should and shouldn't do. Please have a listen.
Au fond, moi je trouve que notre rôle ici, ou au sein de l'Union européenne, c'est pas de commenter l'élection de Donald Trump, savoir si c'est bon ou pas bon. Il a été élu par le peuple américain et il va défendre l'intérêt des Américains. Et c'est légitime et c'est une bonne chose. La question, c'est est-ce que nous, on est prêt à défendre l'intérêt des Européens? C'est la seule question qui nous est posée. Et moi, je pense que c'est notre priorité. Et donc, ça ne doit être ni dans un transatlantisme qui serait naïf, ni dans la remise en cause de nos alliances, ni non plus dans un nationalisme étriqué qui ne nous permettrait pas de relever ce défi face à la Chine et aux États-Unis d'Amérique.
Simple, right? And after that, there was a good discussion with President Zelensky. I'm really happy to see that President Macron is really taking this situation that we're having with Donald Trump and turning it into the opportunity, because this was thoroughly lacked. Moreover, the second point of weakness that we completely knew about in Europe is Schultz. I mean, Schultzing became literally a verb describing doing too little, too late, while boasting from the top of the building about how much you're doing. And Schultz right now is in political crisis. He was forced to fire the finance minister who was from the coalition party. Without this party's support, his government cannot work because they don't have the majority. And they got into argument about how they should support Ukraine. Mr. Schultz here said that there should be additional loans and additional deficit for 3 billion to send to help Ukraine. And the finance minister, on the other hand, stated that no, instead of just doing additional loans, we should just take the Taurus missiles and send them to Ukraine. And they got into argument that they couldn't resolve, and supposedly it finally exploded and Schultz just fired this guy. And you know what's the absolutely hilarious, that just shows the absolute inadequacy of analysis from these guys, is that they both are wrong. Because if you do not send Taurus missiles, then Ukraine is going to start losing. And if you just send just the money, then Ukraine will again don't have the weapons to fight the Russians. In both cases, if Ukraine doesn't have sufficient ability to finance their war and have weapons for their war, then we're going to end up in a situation that Russia is going to take over Ukraine, for example, and then there's going to be millions of migrants coming into Germany, putting pressure on their economic system, requiring even more money than they're going to be spending now. And beyond that, there's going to be now a Russian threat looming over Europe instead of now being contained in Ukraine. So the problem of their analysis, that they're arguing for the things that should be done both, that both missiles should be sent to Ukraine and allowed to use against Russians, and there should be more financing, without looking at like, oh my God, it's going to be a little bit of a budget deficit here. It's like, because otherwise you're looking down the barrel of having so much more economic issues down the line. It's short-term thinking. The potential for solving those issues is already there, and that's my biggest frustration. In September of 2024, someone that you might heard of, Super Mario or Mario Draghi, and his work group about in Europe, they actually created like a full-blown plan, like over, I believe, 60 pages going into details on how they should do work and how they should make Europe a more independent place. So me yelling here was not needed. The plans are already developed. They just need to be put in. And if we're talking specifically on defense, because this is the channel's focus, then they're stating that there should be a massive investment in Europe for everything that's going to be coming from the last half a century. They are preparing that there should be a lot more investment in defense, a lot more spending into the production and everything. The plan is there with details, with nice graphs, with everything underscored extensively. So I don't need to be the guy that just tries to reinvent the wheel. It's just that politicians need to take their heads out of their asses, and they need to look at what's been created by the brightest mind that Europe has to offer. But we're not talking only about Europe, because another aspect of this is Biden suddenly realizing that, wait, so that means I cannot continue my shitty policy of bleeding Ukraine out and for Russia maybe to change their minds. And now he suddenly realizes, wow, we actually have like a lot of money that we haven't allocated to Ukraine. And you know why? Because he was drip feeding it. Because he was slowly drip feeding help to Ukraine to make sure Ukraine doesn't get too aggressive or doesn't start threatening Russia. Absolutely disgusting policy, and I've critiqued Biden countlessly for it. And the fact that he now, with Trump being sworn in as a president-elect, is now supposedly now he realizes that they need to deliver more help to Ukraine is just a joke. It's like dancing on the bones of all of the Ukrainian civilians that got bombed for the last half a year. Moreover, now suddenly he's now been in discussion with some of the advisors group, and they are suddenly lifting restrictions on American contractors deploying to Ukraine for the first time. So they're going to be taking control of how their Patriot missiles are maintained, how F-16s are maintained. So Ukraine will be able to hire private contractors from the United States. My question is this escalation, right? This is not escalation, right? It's not like we're talking about striking at objects in Russia that they were trying to sell down your throat, lying to you all the time that it's going to be massive escalation. Oh, nukes, we're so afraid. It's a fucking contractor to take care to maintain the equipment. Why was this prohibited? Moreover, if this is now allowed, why is striking Russia now prohibited? Like, if you're going in, like, just go in. Like, if you're giving help, just give help. Why these restrictions? Why the restriction for Sweden to not deliver planes? And again, another benefit of Trump coming in, finally putting some light and putting some fire under Joe's policies, which were absolutely inhumane. And you know what's the most gaslighting thing is? Like, because you're still, like, a lot of you here, I know, are believing that, oh, if NATO will go into Ukraine and start protecting Ukrainian civilians from bombs and missiles, then it's going to be some kind of major escalation, that it might lead to some kind of a nuclear war. It's not. It's not. I've been telling you this again and again and again and again. And it's our political class that was spineless, that required some guy with different views, let's put it this way, to come in and finally put some light under their feet. And this is the benefit of Trump. Like, I know there's going to be like some very weird times with a lot of the problems, but I explained to you, while there is a lot of threats from Trump, I also mentioned in my last video that he's transactional, and a lot of you perceive this like a really bad thing. No, it means that he's going to look after his own interest, mostly potentially America's interest. So indeed, Europe's and US relationships will change. It's not going to be like an alliance, like a friendship anymore. It's going to be a more mutually beneficial partnership where we're going to talk about some kind of equal partnership, maybe some kind of trade war here and there. But on the other hand, it's going to be also a little bit more honest discussions. So instead of President of United States telling you every day that they will be standing with Ukraine for as long as it takes, that they are totally committed to Ukrainian victory on the battlefield, to just then years down the line find out that of all of the promised help, they delivered 10%, that they have been prohibiting the contractors to help maintain the weapons inside of Ukraine, that they have been prohibiting other countries to defend themselves. They've been prohibited Poland. Joe has been prohibited Poland to shut down drones that are flying over Poland or Romania, that they have been prohibiting Sweden to deliver planes to Ukraine and so on. All of these things, that's the less honest way of doing it. Now, probably Trump is going to be like, yeah, I'm not going to do shit for you unless it's going to be beneficial for me. On one side, it's absolutely terrible, right? That's not what we want. But it's also just a tiny bit more honest, which is, ironically, to say honest about one of the biggest liars the world has ever seen. And President Zelensky talks even more than me. He talks here about the 300 million that they're still being frozen. It's a purely political decision. But again, I'm going to be talking about the spinelessness and inability of politicians to realize in what kind of situation we're in. Where now, with US potentially, quote-unquote, abandoning Europe, maybe they're going to finally realize that they need to be more decisive. But I'm not going to bet on it. So that's why I'm always going to tell you that it's going to be dependent on us and what we do and how we're going to hold fire on the feet. Because we never should have been in a situation where it needs to be like a guy in the United States that comes and solves and starts putting pressure on European politicians. This should have been done before. None of this should have been a surprise. And Ukraine should never have been going around begging for stuff. We should have been there beforehand. Couple of words about Ukraine. There have been a lot of talks recently about the problems in the Ukrainian military, and just today came out a news that there is a lot of very high-ranking military personnel. I know they're not wearing uniforms, but these guys, they are like veterans. Like, they are all respected and well-known veterans, commanders, and so on. And they came in to the Ukrainian defense minister and they are looking to schedule like these sessions and work groups to start making better Ukrainian army. I'm really happy to see that finally the work and the people that are actually knowledgeable and really respected are gonna be participating and contributing to changes that are thoroughly needed inside of the Ukrainian military. And to finish it up on a very positive note for you, we have a great video. I'm going to leave a link to this video because I cannot show, because again, it's destruction of vehicles in this video, so YouTube might block it. So in this video, you don't really need to understand Russian to understand it, but it's basically for like 3 minutes, Russians like are seeing the blown up tank in this video, and they're walking around and stating, oh my god, this tank doesn't even look like ours. Oh my god, like it's completely torn apart to pieces. And then they take the reactive armor, you know, the one that should contain explosives, and then they drop out. It's like, oh, it's just bricks, you know, like the standard bricks that you use for house building. Oh, they don't even have reactive armor in it. And then like another guy arrives like at the last part of the video, and he kind of, and they're like gloating, they're taking pictures, how we're fucking up Ukrainians and so on. And then another guy arrives and says like, wow guys, you don't recognize this tank because this is a newest Russian T-90M, the most newest of the Russian tanks there is. It's actually one of ours. And everyone's like, no, that cannot be it. So just look to this video, laugh it up. It's hilarious just how much of a self-own this is. I love you guys. Slava Ukraini. I'll see you next time.